Are you an investigative professional? Did you know you can find the best private investigator resources using investigatorstoolbox.com? This resource community was built exclusively for licensed investigators and investigative professionals. You can network directly with members, educate yourself through free webinars and blogs, and even create your own customizable research library. Membership starts for as little as 49 cents a day. Download the Investigators Toolbox app or visit our webpage at www.investigators-toolbox.com.
Is a good case management system keeping you from taking your business to the next level? Crosstracks is the premier case management system for the investigative community. They're the only SOC 2 certified case management software available. Visit crosstracks.com, tell them you're a listener, and save even more. Get a plan in place for the new year to grow your business to the next level. Check out the PI Institute of Education at piinstitute.com. Since 1989, Kelly Riddle has been teaching on subjects such as surveillance, nursing home investigations, insurance fraud, domestic investigations, hidden assets, and accident scene investigations. The PI Institute of Education is a featured learning partner in the investigatorstoolbox.com. So check out the free content on the site, then visit the Institute for more great savings on additional classes. Welcome to this week's episode of PI Perspectives. Sandline Global's Robert Freed is our guest today. Robert's a computer forensic specialist, and today we're talking about email. Rob also writes a regular column for PI Magazine. So let's join the guys and jump into the world of email forensics. Please welcome Robert Freed and your host, private investigator Matt Spare.
And welcome to this week's episode of PI Perspectives. This is your host, Matt Spare, wishing everybody a happy new year as we delve into January, and hopefully we're not getting snowed in here. Today we're sticking around in New York, and I tapped on an Aldenese buddy of mine, someone who actually writes for PI Magazine as well. I want to welcome Rob Freed to the program. Rob, how are you?
Doing well. Happy New Year, Matt. Congratulations on the big news, and hope you had a nice holiday season.
Yeah, it was great. It was great to unplug for a little bit. I mean, as investigators, we really we say we're going to unplug, but we never really unplug. So
I didn't unplug. I was working through. That's when you get the best downtime, is when client requests are a little bit lower, and you can focus on getting some catch up time. Of course, I spent some time with the family in the background too.
Yeah, you got to make time for that. So you have Sandline Global, that is your business, and you do a lot of cool computer searches and forensics and things like that. And you're a regular columnist for PI Magazine. And your most recent article, you were talking about emails, and I thought it was really cool. So we're gonna cover that a little bit later after the break. But tell me a little bit about your background, how you got into this business, and what you're doing now.
I took forensic science in undergrad and in grad school at the University of New Haven. The article right before the email article was with Dr. Lee. He was one of my professors. And so I've been in the industry now, at least through academics, and then through working professionally for over 20 years. Wow. I went from the academic side into professional life, working for the National White Collar Crime Center. That's in West Virginia. I moved there from New York to get the experience, and then wound up teaching for a couple of years, and then got into the e-discovery side of the business, working for a company here on Long Island, progressing into more consulting in some bigger companies in New York City. And I'm now at Sandline Global as of, I think, April of last year, but it's moved very quickly because there's a lot of good stuff that we're doing. So it's been exciting.
Sure. And for folks who don't know, when you say Dr. Lee, that's Henry Lee, one of the foremost forensic guys forever. I think when I went to John Jay College, like, that was the guy,
Yeah.
Everybody knew about Henry Lee. I think at that point he wasn't there anymore. But the specter, because this was OJ, murder trial, back
Yeah.
in the 90s, he was involved with that, I believe, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great to collaborate. We're actually doing a symposium next month on trending topics of forensics, digital forensics, and I'm helping to lead the charge on that. So I'm really collaborating with him more and more these days,
That's
and other professors that I had in the past that are now almost mentors and colleagues getting this event together.
Yeah, it's really neat. I know, like when I went back to teach at John Jay, because I had gotten invited to teach, 2 or 3 times I've been there teaching. It's just it's weird, right? It's like, wow, this is what
Yeah.
I went to college, and now
Yep.
I'm actually lecturing like that. Somebody pinch me. This is strange.
Yeah, it's surreal. And the thing is at that point you have the real world experience where the students are really learning from you, knowing that you were in their seat, at a certain point in the past, and you're giving them information that they'll take with them. And
Yeah.
I can tell you that I've had so many scenarios where I've actually gone back to what was said in the classroom because my professors were really practitioners and residents. They were people who were either police officers or ex-military and lab technicians, providing us the real world experience. And that's really been helpful in understanding how to address cases, investigations, evidence, and leaving no stone unturned, but also thinking a little bit about different methodologies that can be used if you encounter something that is new and that you may not be able to necessarily grasp a hold of.
So there was a real push this past year on that whole thought pattern of methodology and really focusing in on that. And I love that. I love that we're no longer looking at the shiny tool, but it's more along the lines of, how to use that shiny tool to get what you need. And I think that is a turning point for our industry, that we're
Yes.
really starting to focus in on doing that, because how fast technology works and how things so quickly, you really can't count on anything because, it may not work next week. So it was very interesting that turn start in 2020 and really catch steam in 2021. Very, very cool thing. And, the other thing too, you mentioned law enforcement and military as these teachers, professors. Like, to me, it was cool back and not be law enforcement, Perry, and have these kids see like, hey, there's another option. 'Cause
Yes.
that was my story coming out of college, right? I did not go work for any police department, not that I didn't want to. I tried. They wouldn't take
Yeah.
me. And I kind of had to fend for myself. So being able to go back and show like, hey, there are other options, like private industry, if you know how to do it properly, is actually more lucrative, and you have better control over, your personal life, which is important.
Absolutely. That was one of the challenges I experienced because I came out of academics and went to go teach law enforcement. And here's a 20-something-year-old guy standing in front of a class of captains and special agents and, the computer guy of the precinct. And then, trying to take this information and get over the fact that, it's a young person, but the knowledge is there. And that was a great opportunity. It was a great experience. It was a great way to start a career because you got to see the challenges that law enforcement faces. Number one, the budgeting. Training is really difficult sometimes to accommodate with the budgeting. You get to hear about the cases that they're involved in, the search warrants that were executed, the stories about how they became the go-to. In addition to learning the technical and sharing the technical with them, that really has been helpful in helping me understand the best way to approach a scenario as well. So everything's a learning experience.
Yeah, I mean, we're always continuing to learn. I mean, I've been in business for myself for 16 years now, and I'm still learning. I mean, this is why I love this podcast. I love doing this because I love to learn about what other people in the industry do and how they do it. Right? It's always fascinating, interesting to me to hear.
And what you're doing with the investigators toolbox and with the associations that you belong to, you're able to network. And that's the one thing that I really enjoy within the industry. I've always found the law enforcement community to be very collaborative in this specific area of digital forensics. I've been able to reach out to either former students or the listservs, the email groups that are out there, and engage in conversation to try to get some additional ways to look at things. And it's been invaluable. And I think I'm up to 10 associations, and each one of them has unique value in where I would want to look at maybe background checks if needed, maybe a different approach to remote collections that are coming up more and more these days.
Sure.
And even now building a digital forensic lab in New York City, I have to have ideas and consulting that I need to reach out to others about, and it's been very, very valuable there.
Yeah, I mean that's a game changer. I mean, there's always a need for that, and there isn't a need for it until there is a need for it, and then when there is a need for it, it's always like I need it yesterday. So I don't think there's any oh, take your time with this. I send this over to you. There's always like rush charge, or I'll pay rush. I remember there was a guy who I worked with many, many years ago when I first started my business, and he was like I met him through another investigator. I never actually met the guy in person, but he was one of these information brokers that could really get a lot of sensitive information, and he was a good asset to have. And this guy never charged a rush fee, but he never did anything rush either. So anytime you'd be like, hey man, like I'd rush, like I'm willing to pay extra for it, this and that. And his answer to me was, well, you should have told your client to ask for it, 3 weeks ago. And that's the way he lived his life. I mean, that was it. No rushes. Sorry. It's like, it is what it is.
Yeah. It takes time to sift through a lot of the details. And even on cases now, you think about the volume of information and data that we are having to go through. Some of the stuff is a little bit, needle in a haystack.
Yeah. I feel like with COVID and the shutdowns of everything too, I think that whole urgency thing has not taken a backseat, but it's not as urgent as things used to be. Like people are a little more understanding when they're like, wow, it's going to take a little bit more time to get this done the right way. Because we're all kind of going through that, as New Yorkers, and you can appreciate this, we want things yesterday, and if we're not getting it yesterday, we're yelling and screaming, complaining, going, hey, what the heck?
And then the weather happens, and then, the equipment that needs to go can get stuck in a storm, and then you got to deal with the logistics to get that rerouted. And, the remote collections has impacted our industry tremendously in rethinking outside of the box, literally, and having to develop remote collection kits a little bit more user-friendly than in the past, because now you're getting people of all tech savviness backgrounds, and you're having to accommodate everybody, let alone the sense of ownership or privacy is becoming more and more of a concern for many people. So the fact that they're connecting up their devices to equipment that you're sending, and then remotely connecting with you and sharing their data is a concern. And we bring comfort explaining the process. Encryption's involved.
Sure.
Nobody, there's the security access privileges that are given only to specific people. But a lot of that has now come into play, but in a good way. It's allowed us to be innovative in the industry.
Sure.
As a result.
It's definitely opened doors and made things a little easier, no doubt. And, I think one of the biggest hurdles on that, and correct me if I'm wrong here, because I'm just kind of throwing it out there, is from an evidentiary sense, right? Having a judge understand that, I'm not standing next to this thing as I'm downloading it, or it's not in the same room as me, and being okay with that. Right. Just understanding them and educating them of, the way it's encoded and encrypted and all that there is that level of certainty on it. I think that's a pill to swallow. And when you have a judge that's in their 70s or in their 80s, they may not grasp that so well, right? Do you see that as a challenge that you've dealt with?
Absolutely. I think that you're not behind the keyboard. You have more interaction with what we call data custodians than in the past, where normally we would show up on site and they would turn their devices over to us. Now it's a case where we're sending them something, they have to set it up, they have to get on the phone, and we're still virtual, but we do a screen share. We connect up through a video teleconference like this. We bring some level of comfort to everybody. And then to explain the process, it's all about your documentation. Your documentation is the key to everything that you do. If you keep good documentation, if you have logs, if you have a methodology that you use consistently with the naming convention down to the chain of custody forms that you fill out, everything is almost like you're in the room with the people and they can feel at comfort, and we're guiding them through each step of the process, how to open up the settings on the device, change the settings, change it back after we're done. It's almost like we're there, and the client winds up saving the cost of any of the expenses, including travel and more so time in the airports, things like that, which is, sometimes a lifesaver. Yeah. And the volume of these requests is becoming more and more because people feel that, okay, the cases need to be kind of dealt with now a little bit quicker because of all the logistics involved, right? We got to get this, we got to start thinking about this a lot more now than kind of waiting on it, because in the past you would say, okay, either on the 15th, you're going to be going to whatever location, this is what you're going to do. Now it's like, okay, Joe has availability on this day, Mike has availability on that day. How do we kind of make it all work, right? Yeah. And it's a little bit of magic behind the scenes.
Sure. And this is the world we live in now, right? It's not going back, right? This whole thing of video conferencing and depositions and all that, like, it's here to stay. Even in New York, the governor just signed a permanent order with regards to notaries, doing notaries virtually. Like, you're allowed to do it now. And as investigators, is a blessing and a curse, right? So, okay, and now we don't have to go meet with somebody. Maybe we could do a whole statement online, and we can do it that way. But then, it's going to hurt our billing, or maybe the attorney says, I can do this myself. What do I need an investigator for? So it's definitely trickling down, and there's that ripple effect on it. So, all right, so we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to dive into the subject here. Email forensics. You had a great article in this past PI Magazine issue that came out, and I want to highlight that and just dig into it a little bit further, because I think the average investigator doesn't really understand the nuggets, or may not understand the nuggets that are in there potentially for all different types of cases. So everybody sit tight, and we will be right back. I want to talk to everybody today about ScopeNow.com. ScopeNow has been a big-time sponsor of this program for quite some time, and I just love their service. I've been using them since the beginning. I'm one of their beta customers, and it's been so awesome to see them grow into the business that they are today, and just how they just keep reinventing themselves and pushing themselves to get more and more information. What it comes down to is ScopeNow is a tool that you definitely need to use if you do social media investigations, any internet research, and really spending less time digging around and looking for information. I think is one of the best points of how ScopeNow can help you. Their AI platform, their analytics are amazing. You really get an idea of what you need. You're reducing the time, you're reducing the manpower that you're spending on doing this research, because they're essentially doing it for you, and they're doing it correctly, which is most important. One of the new things that they're actually offering is this flagging system where you can flag behaviors and really highlight and look out for fraud. If you're doing a lot of fraud research, this is a fantastic tool, and you can set up alerts. So you have particular people that you're looking at, you can actually set up alerts to get notifications when the criteria that you set up is actually is flagged and goes off. It's really, really amazing. And their relationship and association analytics are top notch, really cutting edge and really, really cool. When they brought that out on version 3, it was a game changer. I mean, really being able to see how people interact together and having that relationship, analysis is really, really something that's cool. One of the other things about being involved with Scope Now is their ability to offer webinars. Their team is cutting edge on putting together and getting out really, really great content. If you're a member of Scope Now, if you know who they are, you've seen them around on LinkedIn, you'll know that they're constantly doing webinars on these new websites that are coming out, and they're really staying on top of it. And don't forget, any reports that you generate, you can actually white label those reports and put your own logos on and really make them look professional, which could equate to more billing for you as well. So check them out today. It's www.scopenow.com. They're a great, great company. They should be one of the tools in your toolbox, along with whatever kind of search engines you do. You need to make sure that Scope Now is a part of that suite. Scopenow.com.
Satellite Investigations is the premier investigation resource in New York State. Founder Matthew Spare was named PI Magazine's Investigator of the Year. If you need investigative assistance in New York State, visit their site at satellitepi.com. Get results, not excuses. Are you a former FBI special agent? Are you in need of network referrals? If so, join SecureFBIDirectory.com today. SecureFBIDirectory.com is the exclusive networking tool of former FBI special agents actively engaged in investigative work. This site is the only networking directory in both print and digital formats for agents by agents. Members are listed alphabetically and by specialty and geographic area, with over 80 specialties in 85 countries represented. It's open season now for both new and renewing members. Go to SecureFBIDirectory.com to become a member or renew your annual membership today. Congrats to our host, Matt Spare. He was just named Investigator of the Year by PI Magazine for 2021. You can get a copy of this great issue at PIMagazine.com.
And welcome back to PI Perspectives. This is Matt Spare, your host. Today we are here with Rob Freed from Sandline Global. Rob, welcome back to the program. How are you?
Good.
Yeah,
I'm good. Thank you.
So we're talking all things forensics today, and now we're going to get a little more specific, and we're going to dive into emails and email forensics. So why don't you give me an outline of this recent article that you have written for the magazine? Maybe not everybody had a chance to read it yet, and just cover the bullet points here, and let's dive into the topic.
Yeah, the challenge of email is one that we have many different flavors out there. You have people who use Outlook, you have people who use websites, you have people who are on phones now. So there's a lot of different ways to access email, and there's a lot of tools to do it. But you have to be conscientious, just like when you're collecting any type of evidence, how you go about and do that. Mm-hmm. If you want to take, for example, emails from a computer, those are typically stored on the local computer. Sometimes, depending on the configuration, it could be sitting on an email server. Other times, emails that you see on the phone don't actually exist on the phone because they're more of a pass-through. It's more of a viewer situation. Mm-hmm. And then, the stuff that you see on Yahoo or AOL or Gmail, that stuff is actually available on a network email server, but sometimes it can be stored locally on a device as well. So, for example, you may have email that you want to save, and you can save that email locally. That's not the default, but you can also, like I said before, have local email files that get stored on the device. So it's a matter of understanding where the data resides and what the best approach is. So it's really about being careful where you click and put some thought into it, because there's a lot of ways now that email is available to us, and how you preserve it is equally as important as how you identify it, because you can see an email on the screen, and if you click on an email a certain way, there are dates and times associated with that email message itself that may get updated. So, for example, if you're an investigator and you say, client, okay, give me my emails that are relevant here and put them in a folder. Well, if you're transferring from one folder to another in that same email account, just to have access to it later or keep organized, you're changing the original path to it. You may be changing the dates and times associated with the message. There's all those nuances that come up. There's also, the way that emails are collected. We typically want to use a forensic tool. A lot of times, our clients sometimes want to forward us messages. That sometimes is okay depending on the message type, but it's not the most ideal way to preserve this type of evidence. You always want to use a forensic methodology. You always want to use an approach that can be repeatable and is defensible.
Mm-hmm.
In the days prior to a lot of these forensic tools coming out, we used the ability to download directly into Outlook. So that's a very popular email client. We would find out the credentials to log into the server, and then we would download the email. Now, that is a good way to do it. The challenge there is some of the logging capabilities, right? So you don't know if all the emails downloaded. There may be errors that you need to reconcile. There are things that you need to take into consideration so that you can prove that what was on that server, what's on that server is what's on your target media that you're saving this data to, right? So there's a lot of those types of things that just from an evidentiary standpoint need to be taken into consideration. It's just not, oh, that's a great email, forward it to me, I'm going to use it in the case.
Yeah, definitely. So what would you say are the most popular types of cases that the emails are a factor in?
Emails are very much so the main source, and phones these days are the main source of evidence collection. That's where a lot of people are still communicating. Email's been around for over 50 years, and people are still sending hundreds of millions of emails, and the reality of it is that there are other document management systems or collaboration solutions that are out there. These systems are getting some popularity. The challenges that most of our clients face are they sign into these different solutions, and then it's easy, and I always say this, it's easy to put the data up in these solutions or upload it. It's more difficult at times to download it.
Oh, geez, you're talking about Google Drive. Google Drive is the worst.
Talking about Slack, Teams, right?
Teams,
it's easy to share.
Yeah.
From an evidentiary standpoint, from an e-discovery standpoint, from bringing that into the courtroom standpoint, it is often very difficult to get the access, the level of access you need, to get the linkage between the email and the attachment, between the logs and correlating all the information that you're downloading and making sure there's no issues with it. There's a lot of these challenges, but I will tell you that on some cases, depending on the industry, even in the multimedia or the media industry, they are using solutions like Slack more than email right now, and it's because of that file size limitation on the attachments that some providers give you, right? So that to go around that, what everybody's starting to do is, you said it before, they're starting to use Google Drive. So now you can attach, you can attach an email or an attachment the same way to an email. So now you're using a third party. So I may grab your email and say, oh, got Matt's email, but now you've got links to your Dropbox account. Oh, now I need match Dropbox account. And so this is a meandering way that we determine uh, oftentimes what other data sources from collecting email, what other data sources are necessary to collect. And that can be network emails that are passed, but this cloud attachment of now being able to attach data that's not truly embedded in the email itself, just a hyperlink,
Yeah.
is really the new trend and some of the new challenges that are that we're facing out there in terms of the forensic software that we
forensically trying to find all that info. Yeah, it's just another level of noise that you got to get through to get what you need. Yes. I guess, right?
A level of access and another data source to collect.
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I love working with them because it if we need to exchange photos or anything like that, like I can do a full size, nice image where it's not compressed through an email. Right. And then you get, I've got some clients like, oh, now I got to download it off my email and put it somewhere. It's like, no, it's first of all, you got your Dropbox or whatever, Google Drive, whatever you use.
Yeah.
But then a lot of the case management software companies, they have their own proprietary in-house solution as well, where you keep it all in one place, which is actually really neat.
There's no need to degrade or downgrade the quality of the attachment when you're using these services. The only downside from an evidentiary standpoint is that you are no longer in control. A lot of these services you're not in control of. You're accessing Gmail as a web-based account. Then the attachment service or the cloud service is another type of account that's up in the cloud. So we lose control of being able to give estimates sometimes based on throttling of the data, right? Where providers say, oh, Matt, you can only download 2 gigs today. And as data collection specialists or forensic specialists, that's some of the challenges, so that the client wants this done ASAP, but it's beyond Rob's controls, beyond Sandline's controls, beyond any investigator's control, right, unless you have a way to tap into Google and Box or Dropbox. And I believe there were some companies that had a faster way to access some of these services a number of years ago when there was a true deadline on something. And I did see that there are some companies that have different access, speeds and things like that. But yeah, the reality is for just thinking through this and getting it out of these systems, there are all these nuances you have to pay attention to.
Sure. Yeah, it's fascinating stuff, right? And I'm sure next year there'll be some other thing that's the hot thing.
Well, you said it before. It's once you learn something, it will get changed, and then you have to learn it again. When I was teaching for National White Collar Crime Center, we were doing the AOL Instant Messenger as one of the artifacts that was very interesting to download.
Rest in peace.
Yeah. Every single update, needed to be looked at. Where's the data being saved? How do we preserve it? What information is being added or lost in this version? And it was a very difficult thing I wasn't on that team. I was on the email team and some of the other courses, but the guys who did the internet based course, I think it was called the IDRA course, they had to constantly look at these data sources and figure out how to get it, in a format that is useful and is similar to the previous format that we were telling everybody about. And sometimes it changed altogether.
Yeah, I imagine those chat rooms were gold mines for
yes.
info.
Different times. I mean, now you have WeChat and Signal and all these that are out there now. So imagine, just dealing with AOL Instant Messenger, and maybe, people had CompuServe and Yahoo Chat. And now we have so many, we go into specific regions of the world, like WeChat. It's a chat program, right? Or WhatsApp. People can do their financial transactions through those applications. It's a gold mine.
What's crazy is that, then there's something with ties to government countries, that are, allegedly backing these companies or whatever. And it's like, are they backdooring into this information? Right. That is a real,
it's all supposed to be encrypted, right?
Yeah.
So
getting back to old technology, I just, I read something yesterday about, BlackBerries. Like,
oh yeah, no
like
longer active.
No longer active. Like they're cycling that out. And man, it was like the rage back in the day, having, was it like a Trio or a BlackBerry, I think, right? Those
Yeah,
two,
I remember we were writing this class on email. I think it was about 2004, 2005. And I was very interested. One of my former colleagues in school, and then he wound up becoming a subject matter expert on the email class, brought in BlackBerry, and he was with the post office. It was one of the guys that was running the digital forensics lab at the time, and he showed me the BlackBerry. At the time, I was always trying to figure out which phones to get to have an email app. And they were expensive. They were like $40 just to have access to your email every month.
Yep.
And he showed me, he's like, oh, the BlackBerry has access to my email. And I thought it was like the best thing through, since sliced bread. And
the little ball, the little tracking ball, and your little stylus. If you were,
and no matter rain, sleet, or snow, that thing, it had a life of its own. I dropped it maybe several times. The first week that I got it, I think I went to a Mets game, and the whole thing, flew down, and I picked it up, and it was fine. So those things were now you got digital screens, right? So everybody's got Gorilla Glass, and it's a different ball game. But those were great and very secure. Obviously,
seeing what the new iPhones, the 13 Max, can do, it's like, wow.
You know what I think about that when I think about an iPhone 13 Max Pro?
What?
How long that's going to take to collect?
Yeah.
How much data is coming off that thing? Am I going to get that collection done in the 5 hours I tell people about?
Everything's work with you, huh?
It's amazing how these have really become small hard drives, and how much data is on there, and the treasure troves. And not only that you have data on your device, but you have it in the cloud. Mm-hmm. And something to think about, and everybody should think about, is when you have phones at play, like I said before, the email is not necessarily stored there. The app data may not necessarily be stored there either. You may see something on the phone that you physically see that may exist elsewhere. Yeah. And that's very important to know when you're talking about cell phones.
Yeah. Even like when I built the app for Investigators Toolbox, kind of same thing, right? So we were going to build a native app where something, lived completely, in that space, or we're going to do a hybrid off of the website. And these were, there were pluses and minuses to both, cost being the number one decision maker on that one. But it's amazing. So like the way I have the app set up for that is, anything I put on the website, and it's all, WordPress and BuddyPress and all that, it automatically translates over to the app. So, as I'm continuing to add content and build this site out, there's no, okay, now I got to go back to the app programmers and they got to, put this page in or do any of that. It's automatically seamless, and it's neat, really cool.
Yeah. Well, the level of content, I'm obviously a member too. The collaboration on there, your resources. I mean, it's just a wealth of knowledge that it's almost real time. You're tapping into these resources, you're updating it. That's great stuff, and it's all it's all available through your app, and whatever you save locally. But I found it to be a very valuable resource on my end as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's so many people are on this thing. It's humbling, actually, how quickly and how cool it's grown. And it's only going to get better, which is cool too, because the community itself populates it with information. So they're
logging in, and seeing how many users joined.
Yep, they contribute articles and information. Site like, hey, I use this tool. Everybody should be using this tool, right? And that's getting back to the methodology and that change in attitude of everyone saying, okay, we need to make everybody in our industry better, right? And this is how we do this. And, the ones that really benefit off of that site and sites like it are the folks that are just getting into business, just starting to do this, whether it be, they had a law enforcement career and now this is their second career, or these young folks that are just, in their 20s getting out of school and now saying, okay, I'm going to give this a shot, or I'm going to work for somebody and do all that. It's been neat. The response has been very cool.
That's terrific. And the on the academic side, the students are really thirsty for what it's going to be like day one.
Yeah.
We just hired 3 interns through the University of New Haven because they said, we want to really get an understanding about the business and understand what you do every day and how they, and it really helps to have a resource out there. When you think about the cost of some of the associations, costs are rising all the time. When you think about an extra, tool that you have available that you can search, that you can find, great job on it. And I like that you're getting the word out, not only at the conferences and things like that, but through the magazines and everything else. So
sure,
very valuable asset.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll have more live conferences this year too. I know I'm scheduled to go to Florida and to Vegas, and I'm crossing my fingers that don't get.
That's what we have these Zoom backgrounds for. We can be anywhere we want to be.
There you go.
Just keep the heat on.
Exactly. It's a chilly one today in New York. Oh, that's cool. So let's say I am that average investigator. I'm that person that has either gone into business for myself or I'm working for somebody, and the question comes up with emails. What would be your recommendation on how to start tackling this? What are the first few things you can do before contacting somebody like yourself, or somebody who specializes in doing the research?
Sure. Understand where the emails reside. Are they on the device? Are they up on the network? Are they on a provider such as Google, Gmail or Yahoo? That's step one. And understand the date range. There's a lot of messages that people get through spam and through, you want to try to get as much of a kind of subset of email communication as possible. Mm-hmm. I have one email account that I've had for 20 plus years, and that's not uncommon. I think you have an AOL account, right? You probably have had
Don't
that.
Tell anyone. Don't tell anyone.
Oh yeah. So,
the thing is, I'm sorry to mean to cut you, but AOL and Yahoo and all that, like, there's a fear on my end that my clients will forget who I am. like if I change my email address, like they know me as, Satellite Matt,
That's right.
And like, if I start changing emails and things like that, am I going to lose business? And at the end of the day, no, I'm not going to lose business. People aren't stupid. They're going to know where to find me. But man, I'm paying $15 a month to AOL just out of fear.
and you have a whole archive. You probably have a diary of your email from the last, decade or so, right? Or more.
Yeah. It's sick. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I've had it for a long time.
So then as your next step, you get the date range, and then you have to find access information. For AOL, you would Google IMAP configuration or POP3 configuration or Optimum, like we have here. I think you have Time Warner in the city, right? So you would figure out, how does the person get their email into this program that they're using? And that's going to be through, going into an SMTP server and then a receiving server. So SMTP is for sending, IMAP and POP are for receiving. So you would actually have credentials, maybe Satellite Matt, and then it would be AOL.com, and then it would have a certain port. That's a little bit more on the technical side, but the examiner is going to work with you to say, please have your client contact me so I can get the credentials for this account.
Right.
The challenge with this becomes, people don't want to give up their password, right?
Right.
I don't know how often you change your password. but some people feel really uncomfortable doing that. So we say reset your password before, giving over the password to the specialist. So you would reset the password. The next thing that comes up is whether or not two-factor authentication is enabled. Right?
Mm-hmm.
This is where you get a text to your phone, you may get a phone call, you may get a push to your device, and that may be a notification you have to click on. Like Matt's, trying to log in from, Texas. Was that you? Yes. Right. You have to set the expectation that there are some logistics involved. Then you'd call somebody like me, because what I would say to you is, okay, what type of email, what's the date range, and is your client available to get in touch with me to provide the credentials and the two-factor authentication information. And then I have the ability to log in there, use a forensic tool, and download the data based on that criteria. You don't want to get into a situation where you're starting to do this stuff on your own, where you're starting to say, well, how many emails do you actually have out there? Let me start doing searches with you. Once you do that, some people start moving things around. You always want to keep the emails in their original source location. You also want to bring up a really good point to them that, you want to have context. So you may want to collect a little bit more than just that range. So let's say your investigation starts January 1. You may want to go back a few days just so that you have a little bit of a buffer. So you have context, right? Because we're trying to tell the story. We're trying to show kind of the path of communication here, all the parties involved. You may, through your investigation, find out some additional information a little bit beyond that scope. Now, if you're dealing with a court order, you can't go really past that. But what I usually do is a day before and a day after to account for time zone issues, right? Certain servers may be based in certain locations that if you do just 12 a.m. to 12, to 11:59 p.m., you may be dealing with GMT or UTC, time zones. So that's really important too, to take into consideration that you want to put a little bit of a buffer there.
Right.
But that's it. They're going to be without their email for about, I usually say about 2 to 4 hours.
Oh my goodness, that's terrible.
Yeah.
I would die.
Try to take somebody's phone away for 2 to 4 hours. People are, constantly, asking what's the update. The email we typically do to make it easier for you, Matt, we would say, Matt, let's meet up at 8 o'clock at night, right before you go to bed. So you're not going to be checking your email.
Right.
And let's start the collection. Then you wake up, hey, everything is done. Thank you. Send that hard drive back to me, and we're done. Nice to meet you. Good luck.
Right. We'll be in touch. Somebody may be knocking on your door at some point. It's crazy. Rob, this was awesome. Thank you so much. Just kind of shedding the light on here. And I got to give you kudos too, man. Thank you for like writing religiously for the magazine and collaborating. I love that when you write your articles, you collaborate with people. And it just adds a little extra saison to the article.
I think it gives people the ability that wouldn't otherwise not think of it to kind of put some thoughts out there. And my next one, which I'm writing now, Monday's
the deadline, pal. Actually, when this episode comes out, that's the deadline.
I still have this one, which I'm holding on to.
Yeah, I'll sign it.
And the next one is going to be on cloud attachments, and then I think the one that I'm trying to get in is on Bitcoin. So again, collaborating with people, on each one of those, and really just giving everybody a little bit of a voice and to contribute to how we go about doing things as PIs and just investigators in general.
Definitely. So if folks want to get a hold of you, what would be the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, so my profile is public on LinkedIn. My email address is rfried@sandlineglobal.com. We're based out of New York City. We have offices that are opening up in New York City in Herald Square. So we're right on Broadway, right next to Macy's. And then through phone, you can reach me at 347-306-8618.
Fantastic. Rob, thank you so much for coming on and spending some time to chat about all this stuff. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next week on the next episode. Take care.
Take care.
We hope you picked up some great tips when it comes to investigating email. A special thank you to Rob for coming on and sharing his knowledge. We also want to thank Crosstracks, Scope Now, Satellite Investigations, Secure FBI Directory, and PI Institute of Education for sponsoring our show. So please support our great supporters. Have you thought about joining the Investigators Toolbox yet? Now's the time to get on board and join the fastest growing digital community for investigative professionals. This month on Investigators Insight, Harriet Gold will join Matt to do a Q&A on subcontractors. They'll answer all your questions on how to use them or how to be one. This meeting is only available for Toolbox members, so climb aboard. If you have a question or a comment about the show, email Matt at matthews@satellitepi.com. You can also find him on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. We want your feedback to bring you the best shows possible. And we'll be back next week with a new show, so make sure you tune in and stay safe out there.